Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Thursday morning, October the 23rd. A lot to talk about this morning. Of course, we still have Tropical Storm Melissa to talk about, an active weather pattern, to say the least, for the next week or two. A deep upper level trough will set up over the eastern part of the U.S. and have some kind of an interaction with Tropical Storm Melissa. Very likely to become a hurricane, potentially even a major hurricane. Many details still have to be ironed out. There's multiple players on the field for next week going into the following week, and we'll certainly highlight a lot of these different factors going on and what makes it a difficult forecast. I'm sure we won't really know too clearly as to how this is going to play out until maybe the early part of next week, early to middle part of next week. Let's go over the latest information right now. Tropical Storm Melissa still maintaining the 50 mile per hour maximum sustained winds. That has not changed over the last 36 to 48 hours or so, and this is the latest position. That hasn't changed much either. We talked about how it has grinded to a halt, still moving at about 2 or 3 miles per hour or so, just drifting to the west here over these very warm waters of the central Caribbean Sea. Just for orientation purposes, this is the island of Jamaica right here, and that certainly will be impacted by this storm potentially in a very significant way and for a long period of time. We're talking about all the way into the early part of next week. This system may be plaguing the island of Jamaica. Over here we have Hispaniola with Dominican Republic on the right side or the eastern half, and Haiti on the western side or western half of this large island. Haiti also will be impacted significantly over a long period of time over the next several days. And of course, this is Cuba and the southern part of Florida right here. These are the Bahama Islands. Puerto Rico, by the way, right here, they're certainly getting in on some of the bands, the outer bands of this system right now. But here we go, still spinning right in the same general area in the central Caribbean, with on top of water temperatures at around 85, 86, 87 degrees, fully capable of supporting a hurricane or even a major hurricane, as the case may be, in a few days. Well, I wanted to show a couple of forecast maps from NOAA. NOAA has a couple of specific models that are designed just for hurricane analysis. This is one called the HAFSB model here, Hurricane Analysis and Forecasting System, I believe is what the acronym stands for. This is a forecast map for Monday morning, October the 27th. Right here is Jamaica, right here, and this is several days from now. This system still right down there in the northwestern part of the Caribbean Sea, and just off the coast of Jamaica. It's hard to tell here, but the central pressure looks like way down around 905 millibars. That is a major hurricane, as depicted here by one of NOAA's hurricane models here. Again, this is all the way out to Monday, the 27th. At the same time, we're looking at this the same time, Monday morning, October 27th. Here we're looking at the wind gusts as depicted by this particular model one. Again, Jamaica right here. We can see some of the red right here. We're all the way up over 110, 115 miles per hour or so for the wind gusts, and certainly potentially even higher than that. Bottom line here, this particular model certainly has the threat of a major hurricane just to the southwest of Jamaica during the early part of next week. Well, here's the latest official forecast map of the track of Melissa by NOAA's National Hurricane Center. They're based in Miami, Florida, and in general, I agree with their idea here. It looks like the tropical storm will just kind of meander northward over the next few days in a general northwest to north direction here, and it is right now in the vicinity of some pretty strong westerly wind shear. That should continue for another 24 hours or so. I do believe after that the wind shear does relax over the upcoming weekend into the early part of next week. That will allow for some intensification. At the same time, the upper level wind flow may change a bit, allowing this system to kind of start drifting more to the west. So they have a little bit of a turn here. And I generally agree with this forecast as depicted here by the National Hurricane Center. They have it as a hurricane reaching hurricane status over the upcoming weekend. Agree with that due to the decrease in the wind shear, and then potentially a major hurricane. Major hurricane meaning Category 3, 4, or 5. And again, this is the island of Jamaica, and it looks like this system will certainly have an impact for several days, not only over Jamaica, but also the western part of Haiti, and ultimately could have a big impact over the island of Cuba. But again, this is going to be a very slow-moving system over the next several days, and we'll be talking about in really the same general vicinity as late as early next week. Well, let's walk through some of the forecast maps from last night's run of the Canadian model here, and let me just say up front, there are big differences, not only among model runs from 12Z to 0Z back to 12Z again, but amongst the numerous computer forecast models, big differences. The GFS and the Canadian model, for example, at one point over the next few days have the position of Melissa maybe 1,000 miles apart. I mean, it's big differences, not only amongst the models, the individual models themselves, but when you're comparing one model to another. And we have the European model, the Canadian model, with the U.S. model, of course, that's the GFS. Using the Canadian model right here, I tend to like its solution here, but certainly nothing is set in stone right now. We'll just go over some of the factors involved and some of the possibilities here. First of all, I've talked about this intense jet stream. That will play a big role. This is a jet stream in the upper part of the atmosphere. We're looking at the 250 millibar level. That's way up in the atmosphere. And a jet streak is kind of an area of enhanced winds within the overall jet stream. And this is just an intense jet streak crossing over the northern Pacific Ocean. We'll just move forward in time here. This is going through the day today, and this particular jet streak pushes into the Pacific Northwest, really with an impact Northern California, Washington, and Oregon over the upcoming weekend. There'll be some rain in low-lying areas, some snow in the inland higher elevation locations. And at this particular time, this jet streak, notice here, kind of lies along this dashed line here, this dotted line here. This is a latitude line, so this is what we call zonal flow when it's right along a latitude line here. In other words, it's flowing at this particular time almost directly from west to east. However, once it reaches the western part of the U.S., we'll start to feel the effects of that intense block, and we'll take a look at that block in the next set of charts here at the 500 millibar level here. Once it starts to feel the influence of that developing block over Canada, it will take a dive to the south, and what we call buckle. The jet stream will move from a zonal to a meridional flow here, and it will dive right down in the southern part of the U.S., and we'll see here in a moment here, it starts to kind of wrap around and intensify an upper level low. And here we go. It's starting to dive now to the south and east. No longer a west to east type of pattern here, but more of a meridional or more or less following longitudinal lines instead of latitude. And here we go. It kind of wraps around and developing a deep trough in the upper part of the atmosphere. We'll see that as well better on the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast maps. But here we go. All the way out, this is all the way out a week from today. This is next Thursday now, October the 30th. And eventually we'll see this shift right there towards the eastern seaboard here, all the way out to the end of next week into the beginning of November here. Next Saturday is, a week from this Saturday, is November the 1st. Halloween, of course, being next Friday, a week from tomorrow. But here is really some of that Pacific Ocean jet streak working its way to the eastern seaboard by the end of next week. Now let's walk through the 500 millibar forecast maps. These are the height anomaly forecast maps, again using the 0Z Canadian model run. Where we see blue, that's lower heights or lower pressures compared to normal, and orange or even red or purple in this case represent higher heights or higher pressures than normal at the middle part of the atmosphere, the 500 millibar level here. Now, we'll move forward here. You see these lines here very, very close together. That is associated with that intense jet streak here that's moving across the northern Pacific Ocean at this time. This is Friday morning forecast map, and we'll just watch the development in this part of North America, the central and northern part of Canada, of just an intense upper level ridging starting to set up there over central and northern Canada. This right here is the Hudson Bay region of Canada, and we'll see here by the early part of next week some purple showing up. That is almost off the charts type anomaly. In other words, much, much above normal heights here. This is your intense blocking that we've been alluding to over the past several video discussions here. A very, very key player. It is the reason this jet streak that was moving, translating along from west to east, will suddenly take that dive all the way down to the southern U.S. and start to wrap around an intensifying upper level low. And here we go. Look at all that. That is intense blocking. By the way, whenever you have intense blocking, strange things can happen in the world of weather. Other systems are slow movers because, of course, you have that blocking to the north in this particular case. And look at this. By Tuesday of next week, we have the intense blocking over Canada. We have one vigorous upper level low over the Rocky Mountain states, another one just off the mid-Atlantic coastline, and then you have this reflection of 500 millibars of what by this time will be a Hurricane Melissa, potentially a major Hurricane Melissa, this being Cuba right here. So this is all the way out to next Tuesday. Just multiple players on the field here. Go forward in time, and this dives to the south and east and intensifies. This is a very impressive look to an upper level trough a week from yesterday. This is all the way out to the middle of next week, Wednesday the 29th. Just tremendous blocking to the north here, and here we go. You have this particular model run then has the tropical system, by this time a hurricane, starting to cross over Cuba, and how these two interact with each other remains to be seen. There certainly will be some kind of an interaction here. We've talked before about the Fujiwara effect, where they kind of tend to maybe have an impact on each other, rotate around, or this could pull this one back to the north and west. We'll go out a little bit farther in time. One of the model runs from this particular Canadian model here, in fact, had this tropical system backing up to the north and west and slamming into the mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S., New England area. That is certainly on the table, that kind of a scenario. Cannot write that off, that's for sure. It's something that is on the table here. But notice here, go back up a little bit here, we have this deep upper level trough. This is all the way out to the end of next week, Friday, Halloween day. It tends to almost absorb that tropical system right by this time here. So this is something we'll watch out for. But of course, there will be that surface tropical system right here. Whether or not it can pull back to the north and west just remains to be seen. That is a scenario that's on the table here. You cannot completely dismiss that. So here we go by the end of next week into the weekend. November 1st is Saturday, November 2nd, Sunday. You still have this very deep upper level trough across the eastern U.S. and blocking to the north. Now, one other contributing factor here will be cold air intrusions into the U.S. We have a pretty widespread chilly air mass right now as we begin the day here on Thursday, all the way from the northern plains across the Great Lakes into the mid-Atlantic region. The next several days will be cooler than normal across this part of the nation. anchored by strong high pressure to the north and east. Again, quite a chilly air mass and a widespread chilly air mass. There will be many nights of frost in the Mid-Atlantic region, in the interior northeastern U.S., for example, over the next several nights, not only later tonight, but later Friday night, later Saturday night. Watch out for patchy frost, and in some cases, the first hard freeze of the season. For example, western part of Virginia may see temperatures down in the low to mid-30s for overnight lows, not only late tonight, but late Friday night, late Saturday night as well. Again, this could be the first hard freeze in some of these areas right here. So let's move quickly forward here in time, and we'll see that this cold air mass here, relative to normal, hangs on right into the upcoming weekend. This is all the way up to Sunday right here. And look at all this out here over the Pacific Ocean here, up across the Aleutian Islands, much colder than normal. Temperatures here, this is at the 850 millibar level. Now, where that intense blocking forms, higher heights than normal, much higher heights than normal, much higher pressures than normal, and much warmer temperatures than normal. That's all how it works. Where you have that intense blocking, right underneath that, you have warmer than normal temperatures. Of course, this time of the year, warmer than normal temperatures up across northern Canada is cold, but relative to normal, it's above normal. Now we'll see a developing cold air mass right here over the western half of the U.S. come Tuesday. And it is at this time that deep upper level trough is forming over the south central states, and this cold shot of air, this widespread cold shot of air, dives to the south, associated with that upper level trough here in colder than normal conditions out across the eastern part of the southeastern part of the U.S. And here we go all the way into Friday of next week, and then into Saturday of next week. And here is cold air intrusion into the southern states and kind of moving off to the north and east at this particular time. So you have an influx of cold air that will play a role as well in this overall pattern here, going through the middle and latter part of next week, and certainly through the following week. That first full work week of November, we're talking November 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and 6th, may see some significantly colder than normal conditions across much of the eastern two-thirds of the nation. Now let's take a look at the surface forecast maps. By the way, all these model maps here are from tropicaltidbits.com, and we're looking at the North America view as opposed to the more conventional view that I look at the continental U.S., because there's so many players so far apart on the field here. We have the tropical system in the Caribbean, we have the Pacific Northwest, Northern Pacific jet streak, so I wanted to take a look at the North America view here. Surface map right now, we have low pressure over eastern part of Canada. Now, let's move forward from today. This is Thursday, and certainly down in the Caribbean right here is the island of Jamaica with a slowly intensifying Melissa here. Again, I think it won't intensify much over the next 24 hours or so, but over the weekend it really starts to undergo some intensification. This is the high pressure system I alluded to earlier, kind of controlling the weather across the northern plains, the Great Lakes, the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast U.S., New England over the next several days, with cooler than normal days and colder than normal nights and patchy frost, even some hard freezes in some areas, all supported by this Canadian high up across Hudson Bay region for the next several days, going right into the early part of next week. This is Sunday, and here we go all the way into next Monday morning. This particular model run still has Melissa way down there, just to the south and west of Jamaica. Again, right there is Jamaica. Strong high centered over the eastern part of Canada. And cold air intrusion into the western U.S. resulting in some snow in those higher elevation locations. Now, we'll move forward in time here, and the Canadian model has this tropical system crossing over central Cuba, maybe in western Cuba. That's a little bit farther west than the other models, European, for example. That's a key factor. We'll just have to see how that plays out here, exactly when and where this system escapes from the Caribbean. And here we go. We have this reflection here at the surface of that strong, deepening upper level low over the central U.S. by the time we get a week out from right now, Thursday of next week, and then we go into the latter part of next week, Friday and Saturday. There is that upper level trough over the eastern U.S., and there'll be a strong system right in this area right here. At the same time, you have the hurricane, and again, there can be some interaction between this and this, and you can see kind of this wind flow pattern right here could pull some of that tropical moisture back to the west towards the eastern seaboard. Even with the center of the tropical system well off the coast, it will have an interaction with the upper level trough, and it will have an influence on the weather across the eastern U.S. Will go a little bit farther out in time, and certainly this kind of a scenario cannot be completely ruled out that it ultimately gets pulled back to the north and west due to the interaction with the upper level trough at this particular time. This is all the way out to next weekend now. This thing's sitting right over the mid-Atlantic region. Again, you still have that tremendous block right up in this area here. So this kind of a scenario at this time it cannot be completely ruled out, but even if it stays off the coast, there will be some impact, some influence because of that interaction with the upper level trough. And this is as far out this particular model one goes here, 10 days here. This is all the way out to the middle of next weekend. So certainly stay tuned over the next several days. And again, we won't have a real clear picture of this, I believe, until the early or middle part of next week. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.